Hi everyone, today we're going to be taking a look at some 2024 potential candidates and a discussion of their chances in a wide open Republican primary. So we're going to be taking a look at many different situations here. So just a few bits and bobs just to get started with. So this is if Biden is elected, we're assuming he does not run due to age or death in office or health complication or other matters. And if Trump is re-elected, then obviously he can't run for a third term. So in both situations, both of the parties will have wide open primaries. And I'm also assuming that if Trump loses, he does not run again in 2024, as this could upend the whole primary system and would not apply to both 2020 situations. So it's just easier to assume, and I don't think he's actually going to run if he does indeed lose, as it looks like he will. But starting off here, we have the Republicans. So I've grouped them into a few different categories, and they are a bit subjective because a lot of them are sort of not as easy as just doing, senators or governors or representatives. So I decided to do it this way, and this will also inform you about the different policies of the different candidates. So the first group here we have populists and nationalists. So that's the first group there. So candidates who aspire populism, sometimes who are more sort of on the left economically, but more on the right on the on cultural issues, on social issues, and then nationalists. Many times these candidates are more anti-immigration, anti-China, so that's going to be an interesting group to watch. Second group we have here Trump administration and Trump kids. So obviously there's a lot of speculation about, will Trump's kids run? Will they run in 2024? Ivanka Trump has been speculated. You've got people like, I don't know, you've got, Don Jr. being speculated. And then you've also got people in the Trump administration. So obviously highest profile is Mike Pence. But you've also got Mike Pompeo, so, battle of the mics there. So that's going to be very interesting. Third grouping we have is moderate Republicans. So this is sort of quite subjective. This one especially is probably one of the most subjective out of the areas. So a lot of times these are sort of senators who, maybe are more moderate, but still pretty sort of mainstream within the party. Not necessarily the Mitt Romney types, but it could be, I'm pretty sure I've got Rubio in that category, for example. And then final category, this one's probably actually the worst category to group all these people in together. So you've got the Tea Party, the Libertarians, and the old school Republicans. So these are pretty much sort of everyone else, if you know what I mean. But it's probably the broadest category. That doesn't necessarily mean there's the least number of people in that category, but I think it's the broadest category out of them. Because, well, I guess you'll see it, and I have one particular grouping where I don't think these two characters should be together, but I've just put them there because I don't really know what to do with them. They don't really fit into uh, any of the other groupings. So, starting off with, if it's gonna load for us, let's see. Oh, there we go. Sometimes it just it gets a bit backlogged, so I'll try for that not to happen. But first grouping, populists and nationalists. Obviously, we have here Tucker Carlson is the first contender. So he's an interesting one, and I've got him on my radar here for 2024 because I think he could definitely run, and I think he could do quite well. I mean, he's sort of you could say that, on cultural issues, on, BLM, on, more social stances, he would be pretty conservative. But on economics, on trade, you could say that he's, maybe aspires some more, isolationist policies, for example, on trade, protectionism policies, which tend to be more favored towards the Democrats. But that sort of maybe has changed in the last decade or so. But And then also on economic issues, he's not all for the tax cuts and all. So he's sort of a mix, but then obviously on immigration, he's very right wing. So I think he could definitely run, and I think he could do quite well in this Republican base. This is sort of anti-capitalist, anti-immigration, nationalist ideology. I think could do well in a Republican primary. Not saying I agree with that. You can check out my political compass for that. But I think he could, you know, do something that if he does want to run in 2024, he could make things interesting if he wanted to. So I think he's got a pretty good chance in 2024. Next, okay, there we go. Next, we have Mr. Hawley, Josh Hawley. So he's a senator from the state of Missouri. He beat Claire McCaskill last time round, and he has been one of the loudest voices in terms of more sort of uh, populist economic responses in terms of COVID-19. He wants to nationalize wages during the COVID-19 pandemic. And some of those, and with Carlson and with Hawley, some of these sort of more left economic leanings could come back to bite them if they do decide to join the Republican primary. But I think a lot of these sort of views are, stuff that, 2 times Obama voters who voted for Trump maybe, are in this sort of camp. And, it's sort of hard to place where Trump would be. In rhetoric, you could say he's with this group. In practice, I would argue he's pretty much a sort of standard Republican doing standard Republican things like tax cuts. But, Hawley's not all in for the tax cuts. But so it's going to be interesting to see how he does if he does decide to run, but I think he could do quite well. Same thing with Carlson. I think that Trump's 2016 primary win showed us that there is some sort of yearning for that sort of change in the Republican Party of not being so corporate friendly on the tax cut side and, being more populist on the economic side, and then obviously on the social side, on the immigration side, you could argue on the China front, you could argue that they're sort of more in line with mainstream GOP voters. So, but I thought that's an interesting grouping. That's probably one of the better groupings that you could say for that. Moving on, if it's going to load for us. There we go. It's having some trouble loading for us today. Much apologies for that. Here we have Trump administration and Trump kids here. So this is a grouping that pretty much, I think all of these people would probably be the most likely to get the president's endorsement in 2024. In the case that let's see if we can just go direct there. Alright, okay. It is lagging a lot, so yes, that's not great. Alright, first on the list is Donald Trump Jr., so definitely he could make a run. I mean, he's been floated. If, Trump didn't run in 2020, he could actually run. I mean, I don't know how much traction he would have. Obviously, some people who voted for Trump would just be, oh, yep, Trump's kid is running, yep, sure. He could run. I don't know how well he'd do, but another possible contender, and obviously these two wouldn't run at the same time. We've got Ivanka Trump. So I think Ivanka Trump would probably do better than Trump Jr. But it's sort of hard to say. They might both do sort of pretty similar. It's going to be interesting to see how any of these people would do. Put it this way, I would most likely, unless Trump himself is running in 2024, I would say there's probably like a 50-50 chance one of these two are going to run to take Trump's place in the Republican Party. So I don't know how well Ivanka Trump would do, but I wouldn't, hold my nose on her, being in the top 3, if you know what I mean. But definitely she could probably make a run for it. Here, obviously, you have to put Mike Pence, the current vice president, pretty close to the top of your list because more often than not, the president does actually run in the next election. For example, you've obviously got Ronald Reagan's VP, George Herbert Walker Bush, run in 1998. Bill Clinton's VP, Al Gore, run in 2000. You have John Edwards, who was John Kerry's VP, run in run in 2008. You obviously Kerry didn't end up becoming president. You have Obama's VP Joe Biden run in 2020. So there is sort of precedent for vice presidents uh, going for the presidency role, and that's not really surprising. So you have to put Mike Pence, and I think he would definitely. If the Trump kids don't run, I mean, Pence would probably get Trump's endorsement, but you never know Trump. He could turn on anyone. But I think Pence would definitely do well. You could say he's, supportive of the evangelical base. He's, right winger, just sort of, I'm not going to say moderate because I think he's probably to the right, especially on economics, than the average GOP voter. But I think just being vice president means you're going to do well in the next primary. Moving on, we have Mike Pompeo. Uh, so he could be interesting. So I think he could say that, I'm, a steady hand on the national security front. I'm keeping America safe. And I think he would probably do better if, let's say in a hypothetical world, North Korea started, launching attacks, or, Iraq or Afghanistan, or anywhere that sort of became a more geopolitical threat. I think Pompeo would probably do better in the primary because people would want that national security expert who's been in charge of it for a while. Next, and I think he could do pretty well. Next, we have moderate Republicans, and there's a lot of people in this group, most of whom I don't think will do as well as some people are saying. So first we have here Senator Tim Scott. Definitely could run. I mean, South Carolina senator. He's a possibility. Who could run? I, I mean, he could get some support from the very little African American population in the GOP, and obviously some other people. But I think he could run. I don't know. I don't think he'd do all that well though in 2024. Nikki Haley is a name that's probably one of the most often mentioned when people talk about 2024, and she definitely could run, and I think she'd really make a run for it. I think she could do very well in a potential primary situation. I think uh, I don't know how many Republicans would be okay for a woman to be on the top of that ticket, but she could definitely make a run for it. A moderate Republican, South Carolina, definitely someone to keep your eye on. Here we have Mitt Romney. I wouldn't hold your nose on this one. I mean, he ran in 2012, so that would be 12 years ago. Uh, I mean, I guess it's a possibility. He sort of made a name for himself, but I wouldn't hold your breath on that one. He's run twice before already. Here we have Senator Marco Rubio, who's publicly signaled already that, he's not out of presidential politics yet. He could make another run for the GOP nomination, and I think he's eyeing 2024. I think that definitely he could run. I'd say he's probably gonna run. I mean, definitely someone who you should keep an eye on. His term expires in 2022, so if if he's gonna run, he might resign his set, or not run for another term and then start a run for president. So I would definitely keep your eye on Rubio. Here we have Larry Hogan of Maryland, blue state Republican, definitely someone who definitely could, make the case as the moderate candidate needed to beat the Democrats after what's looking like a pretty bad defeat for the Republicans in 2020. Definitely someone who could make an electability case as well. In that similar mold, here we have Charlie Baker, also could make a run for it. I don't know how well these characters would do, but I think they could gain some traction within the John Kasich crowd, within the resistance crowd as well. Uh, Here, this is probably the worst grouping. We have Tea Party, Libertarians, and old school Republicans. First up, we have Rand Paul. Just a second. Alright, so Rand Paul, very interesting character. I mean, he could run. I mean, I don't know how well he'd do. His non-interventionist foreign policy and being slightly more acceptable on social stances for the left could make him a target in debates. But I think again that's what maybe some of the Republicans might be. Uh, Maybe some non-interventionist Republicans, more paleo-conservatives, might be looking for. I don't know how well he's gonna do. I mean, he's run before. He didn't do very well, so he could run. Just don't think he'd do very well. And this is one of the problems I have with popping him here in this grouping, because we have here with Ted Cruz. Also, I think a likely contender in 2024. I mean, runner-ups to the previous years often end up being nominees the next time round. You know, ask John McCain, ask Mitt Romney, ask Hillary Clinton, you know, ask, you know, Al Gore, you know. I think definitely could be someone to keep your eye on. I don't think he's going to do well though, and that's probably quite controversial. I think, you know, Republicans, I think they're pretty much done with Ted Cruz. I don't think he's going to do well. I think that he will think he's going to do well, and he might come in with some momentum, but at the end of the day, I don't think he will do very well in this primary. Here we have Ron DeSantis, another sort of Republican there. He's sort of just sort of like, you know, he's, you know, a big Trump supporter, but I wouldn't group him with the Trump administration because he's not one of those, not with the moderate Republicans and not with the populists. So I guess he just sort of fits in here. He could make a run for it. I think maybe he wants to wait a bit, get his name ID up. I think he's definitely eyeing a 2024 run. I think, you know, he might get 5% of the vote. I don't think he'll do very well. Here, and this is probably one of the most, this is why I have a big problem putting Liz Cheney and Rand Paul in the same category, but I really didn't know where to put Liz Cheney. She might have gone in with the moderate Republicans, but I ended up just putting her here. Liz Cheney, obviously the daughter of Dick Cheney, so yeah, I think she could make a run for it. She's pretty high up in the House Republicans. You know, Wyoming, I don't know how well she'd do, sorry. So yeah, and this is one of the big problems with putting Liz Cheney and Rand Paul, of all people, in the same category, because pretty much their views on foreign policy are polar opposite. So, sorry about that. But I didn't know where to put them, so that's one of the problems with this grouping system. But I thought, you know, this video probably gives you a bit of background into the different Republican nominees in 2024 who are probably going to run. So I didn't really know. They probably shouldn't be in the same category, but that's just how it ended up. Alright, so now the big question is, well, who's actually going to win from this list? So here are what I take to be the top 5 frontrunners for the nomination and their positions in the debate. So the middle here, let's see if we can get it. So pointer here. So the middle here would be who's first place, the first place candidate I think in a debate, and then second place over here, third place, fourth place, and fifth place. And everyone else at sixth place or lower. And alright, so in fifth place, we have Tucker Carlson, so his, you know, brand of anti-immigrant populism could work. He's sort of, you know, maybe a Bernie guy on trade, but it's going to be interesting to see if he does run and how he does. And I think he could do well with lots of parts of the country. In fourth place, we have Florida Senator Marco Rubio, so sort of carrying the moderate mantle of the party. Definitely someone you should keep an eye on who has presidential ambitions. So yeah, moderates would probably flock to Rubio, and another candidate who I'm going to get to. In third place, we have Senator Josh Hawley, so also in the mold of a Tucker Carlson, more left on economics, more left on trade, more right on immigration, more right wing on social, more right wing on culture. Uh, I'm not sure about his foreign policy stances, uh, so I'm not sure about that one, but definitely someone to keep an eye on. Up and comer in the GOP who wants to take it in a new direction. Definitely someone who could make a real shot for it. So, who are the top two candidates? I see this is my big prediction here. Republican nomination in 2024, assuming Trump does not run in 2024. We have in second place here Nikki Haley. So Nikki Haley, I think definitely could be someone who could run and win. So it should have sort of be sharing that moderate lane with Rubio, Hawley sharing the populist lane with Carlson, and obviously in first place you have to have the current Vice President Mike Pence as your front runner in a 2024 ticket. So that's my top 5 candidates for the Republicans in a potential 2024 primary. So this video's gone on for a bit longer than I had thought, but that's it for today's video, guys. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one. Good night.